when you're following your true nature and really trusting what the instincts and intuition are telling you, then and you live by it and you honor both where you're at, your nervous system, your true desires versus what you think you should do versus what you've been conditioned to want versus what are old habits and behaviors. Well, what begins to happen is a lot of things begin to flow together and they require a fraction of the effort that normally we tend to put into things. I'll give you an example. I know this is going to sound maybe small, as some of my examples do, but the joy is that the results can actually be quite significant in relation to the small effort I am actually mentioning. And so, for example, I was talking to somebody trying to get some guidance on behalf of someone else. It's not my area of expertise, and so I was just getting her input. She mentioned getting a specific item from a particular store, and this store happens to be out of my way. Okay, it's not an area, a neighborhood that I normally venture near. It would take a little extra time and all of that. I'm just not familiar with it either. And yet, of course, in my mind, I thought, okay, if this is something that's really going to help, I will contact who I need to contact, and whatever, we'll make it happen. And 2 days later, I kid you not, 2 days later, a friend of mine invites me for lunch and invites me to this exact neighborhood. Now, this friend and I, we typically, if we're going to hang out, we hang out in our area. There's so many choices here. We haven't even tried a fraction of the restaurants and all of that. So it's very easy to stay either in the neighborhood or very close by, right? And so for this person to then suggest this place that is again out of the way, um, it was just like odd, right? And at first I wasn't even thinking about it, of course, and I said, sure, yeah, I can make it. And then all of a sudden it dawned on me when I asked, where is this located? And I heard the street name. I was like, you got to be kidding. This is exactly where I wanted to go to get this item. And that's what we did. We had lunch and did a couple of things. And then I was like, hey, do you mind if we stop at this shop? Because I really want to see if they have this particular item. And that's what we did. And I am just blown away by how when we drop into our knowing again what we're called to. So in that moment, I happened to have a conversation with that woman a couple of days ago, asking her that specific question. And that led to her telling me about the story, which I had never heard of prior to that. And and it was again like, it is often said like the universe conspires for our good, right? So when we begin to focus and trust, oh, I want to ask this question. I want to go there. Oh, I got this invitation. Like today, it was a day I had fully available for my work, and I was actually excited about that. And yet, this invitation that came wasn't usual. It was another friend visiting from out of town. And so I was like, well, it's not like I can say, hey, let's go next week. So the timing, I was like, yeah, you know what? I can make that. And I can plus it'll energize me. I know that'll energize me and I'll have probably more motivation later for the work that I'd like to get done. So this is in a way a small example, but much bigger things have also happened, not only for me, but for the people I work with. And by the way, I'm saying it's small, but actually that may not be correct, because if this item actually works for the person, it could be a massive win. It could be a real improvement in their lifestyle and their life and their well-being. And so, who am I to say it's small? Like, because the repercussions may actually be significant enough to have made this important. And let's say it isn't, right? It doesn't have any magical abilities or powers, and it's just something new that we found. And in the meantime, I have found a shop that I really like, and now I know where to go to get certain things. So it has simplified an aspect of my life that I don't have to go research this, right? It kind of came to me. And so a lot of things begin to happen like that. So yesterday's video, I was again kind of referencing that idea of um, trusting the natural intelligence, and in order to do that, we really have to practice more often in doing that in the smallest decisions as well as the big decisions. Because the more you practice it, the more you just end up being who you are versus being at the mercy of everything else around you, everything else you're hearing. And you begin to trust yourself. And you also begin to notice, well, which of these decisions actually tended to work for me, which maybe others might have felt neutral, and, did anything not work when I act on this? And what does that actually mean? Is it because I acted on it, or was it some other condition? Right? So this way of being is really here to guide us to be more of who we are, to get the answers and sometimes what seem like solutions that we might have been waiting for a long time, uh, to have them begin to arrive without our forcing them, without our having to put so much effort that we, exhaust ourselves, that we burn out, that we are so overwhelmed with the technology out there, with the solutions given out there, with the information overload. And instead, we begin to simplify our world and we begin to hone in on what's actually really important. That allows us that spaciousness to really know what our true dreams are. When you have more space in your life, when you're using far less effort, when efficiency just seems to happen for you, you have that time and you have the energy to allow those bigger downloads to come through you, to allow what can even feel like a channeling, like something just came through me in that moment and I just knew an answer, or I was able to reply to somebody in a way that I'd never had the words before. And all of this begins to add up. It's not just like compound interest, it actually can multiply, and there's an exponential difference in the quality of our life as well as the kind of results we can expect. So I was just excited because sometimes I know, like, I speak of these things and I know how true they are, and yet every time I get a new confirmation of it, a new example, it excites me. And I'm hoping, like, when you listen to me as well, you begin to connect the dots in your own world. Like, am I open to this? Do I notice these moments? Do I really honor them? Because the more you do, guess what? The more of them come. Because it's like, the same thing is like seeing a red car, right? So as soon as you start paying attention to that, you see all these red cars suddenly, right? Whereas before you weren't. So where is our attention going? What are we therefore attracting, magnifying, creating in our world? And this is where, again, I am a strong believer in saying one doesn't have to study manifestation techniques in order to experience this, because this is actually our natural state. And some techniques can help. I have used them in the past, but I have realized that often it just made me think more. It made me feel like I have to do more. I have to correct my thinking. I have to correct my feeling. And it just felt like, again, more a pile of more to do instead of relieving me, instead of releasing me from that kind of energy, instead of allowing me to be in a natural state where these things can happen. And so, while I will use a technique if I just feel like it, if I'm enjoy to use it, but I won't live my life by it, because the example I just shared, these kind of things begin to add up and they begin happening. And then guess what? More trust, more creation, more results. And then you can, get bolder and bolder and bolder, because you realize it doesn't even matter the size, whether it's a small wish or a giant wish. It can be something that you realize because now you are in a state of being where your natural intelligence is flowing out without effort, and it is designed exactly for you.